Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the Jeez, I'm fumbling already, man. Drew, I'm fumbling already. Welcome back to the podcast today. And listen, it's one take. Everyone knows the rules, so I'm not going to go back and start over again. Welcome to the podcast. Drew Schaumann, how are you, brother? Thanks for joining me, man.
Doing good, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
This is tough for me right now. I'm not going to lie. So I'm sitting across from you, looking at you on the video. You're down there in Florida. I'm up here in New Jersey. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not because of the weather. The weather outside here today is beautiful, sunny. It's going to be like 82 degrees today. It's gorgeous here. I'm talking about the fact that you are wearing my one-of-one hockey jersey, my sweater that I wore at FDIC with the National Fire Radio Tiller Time logo with the Rev Group on the back,
Yep.
number 71, Jeremy. It's got the captain. I got my Captain C on the front chest, and now you own it. And
Yes,
I
sir.
did not see that coming. So I want to talk about that a little bit, man, because before FDIC, you and I did not know each other. And so what I come to find is through experiences like FDIC, you meet some incredibly dynamic people that become important. And I think you're going to be one of those guys in my lives. I truly believe that. And I say that with the most sincerity because that day we were doing in Firefighters Row, we were doing a giveaway every day. We were doing prizes and auction for raising money for Next Rung, which is a group that focuses on mental health for first responders. And we're doing that. And I'm rocking my hockey sweater. And next thing you know, somebody says, "How much for the sweater?" And then bang, some guy in the front row makes a crate, and I said, it's only up for auction, or if you bid on it, it's got to be a good number. It's got to be worth it. And it was. And you came in with a very strong number, went back and forth a few times, and out of nowhere, I hear you throw out a number, and I go, you got to be kidding me, man. This is crazy. And we raised a considerable amount of money for Next Rung. And so there it is in front of everybody. I take the jersey off, throw it to you, and here you are today wearing it. I didn't know, and this is full transparency, I didn't know what the story was behind it. I'm like, why would this guy spend so much money for my sweater? And then I come to find out, talking with you, that there's a lot of backstory about mental health and Next Rung, and it was an opportunity, and you jumped at it. And I want to say, first off, thank you. It was incredible and super generous of you going to a good cause, but I'd love to. And then with that was, Drew, you got to come on the podcast, bro. You got to wear this. You got to wear the jersey, and let's talk about this. And here we are. So, I mean, welcome to the podcast. First and foremost,
Thank you.
what are you doing with my sweater, man? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nice. I love it. I'm going to probably wear it every day now.
That's crazy. I mean, so what was it? What was it that day? Was it just the moment? Like, give me a little background.
Yeah, so a little bit of in the moment, a little bit of just some values that I hold. A little bit about myself. I grew up here in Central Florida. My dad is a fireman for the city of Orlando. He's been there. I had to ask him this morning, actually. 24 years,
Awesome.
1 week and 1 month, or 1 month and 1 week. So he just got promoted to chief. He's loving it. So I grew up in the firehouse. I grew up around a lot of really great people, and we'll get into more of it later. But just starting at a young age, my expectations of what I thought a good firefighter was and what I thought a good firefighter should be. I looked up to some of these people, and I saw some of the troubles they were having. Pretty young, early on into my career, somebody who I idolized and who I wanted to be like ended up committing suicide.
Wow.
I went through this whole journey of feeling like, man, if I want to be like him, that's my path. That's where I end up. I had a lot of ups and downs, and so fast forward now to FDIC. FDIC 2023, I had the opportunity to meet the guys at Next Rung, did a project with them, and then this year, we turned the corner. One of the security guards in the hallway was like, "Hey, I wouldn't go down there. There's a lot of people, and it's a big fuss down there." And me, Eric, and Jimmy, we like to get into that stuff, so we went down, and it just felt like the right thing to do, the right time. It was fun. It got people energized, and I don't know. Sometimes things just feel right, and you just feel like you need to do it, and you do it. So
I get that, man. I can tell you this: I'm standing on, excuse me, I'm standing on a cooler behind the BA Shields booth, and we're auctioning off all these things. And I look over and I see Eric Wheaton, which Eric has been on the podcast, and I've known him now for a few years, and he's always just been a gentleman and such a nice guy. And then I see this guy standing next to him, Jimmy, who's like 7.5 feet tall, and then there's you standing with him. And I'm watching you guys judge what's going on. Like, I'm watching the smiles and the smirks and the comments going back and forth, and I know Eric, so I'm like, is he just, like, ripping me apart right now? Like, I felt like there was some of that, like, look at this guy, right? And then all of a sudden, like, you know, the jersey came up for the conversation, and you bid on it, and you win the jersey. And I was like, what are they going to do with this? Like, what? And then when I started talking with you and you started sharing some of your story with me, I said to you the other day when we spoke, I said, man, there's a lot of your story that will certainly resonate with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about that a little bit because you talked about a mentor of yours early on, somebody that you respected, that was in the fire service, and you looked up to him in a way, and he took his own life. Did you, like, how old were you when that happened? Like, what age group were you when that occurred? Do you know?
I want to say, I think I was 20 years old.
Super impressionable.
Yep.
Right? You grew up in a firefighter's home. Your dad's a chief in Orlando, you said, right?
Yep.
So the fire service is something that you want to get into, and there is somebody that's a mentor to you, somebody you looked up to that took his own life. At 20 years old, I can't even begin to imagine the feelings and the thoughts that started going through your head about, you know, and a lot of times, too, as we all know, a lot of times it's like, I never saw it in that guy. That guy he's not the guy. Like, yep. I can't believe this happened. So, I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go with it, but I'm just curious from my own knowledge. At 20 years old, I mean, it's a super impressionable time on you. And so where I think your story can resonate with many is a lot of people have witnessed other people have struggles throughout their careers, young and old. So for you, I mean, at that age and then coming forward to get into the job, I mean, you had to have some preconceived ideas and notions about what it looks like, how it is. Is mental health going to be part of my struggle and journey, that if I join the fire service, I go through the fire academy and do this? Is this something that's going to weigh on me down the road? Like, I have to think all those thoughts went through your head.
Yeah. So coming up, obviously, like I said, I grew up around a lot of really great people. Some guys who are still working at Orlando. I grew up in Orlando, so a lot of my early days were spent there. Knew a lot of great people, met a lot of great people. I was an explorer there, riding. Spent a lot of time around the Orlando Fire Conference. So my kind of idea coming in was, right, firefighters are these big, strong guys. Like, I got to be in peak physical shape, you know, top performance, be dedicated to the job. And then the other side of it is that, you know, nothing can affect me. The calls you run can't affect me. Mental health is a cop-out. You know, if you are upset or stressed, like, that's not me. You know, I'm hardened. So I noticed I was at a pretty busy firehouse. We were right on I-4, which is a busy highway that runs through our state. You know, got a lot of experience early on, a lot of big calls. I had a great crew that, you know, was aggressive and passionate. And a couple things happened. You know, 19 years old, I was running a couple suicides and shootings and auto accidents on kids my own age.
Wow.
Sometimes younger. And I started kind of wearing that as like a badge of honor. Like, it became the things that I bragged about, you know. And I think my friends would ask, "Oh, well, what's the worst thing you've seen? What's the?"
Yeah.
You know, it was never like, "Oh, did you have a fire? What was cool? Did you meet anybody?" It's, "Oh, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?" Right. So it became cool, and that was the thing to brag about. So I had a couple friends early on. I say friends, acquaintances, people that I knew from the high school days pass away in some freak accidents. A friend who was going through the fire academy, going to go into Orange County Fire Department, killed in the Pulse nightclub shooting. And kind of all these steps of the way, you know, just I don't know, put it on my sleeve. Like, hey, I knew
Yeah.
this guy. I knew this guy that was at Pulse, and never really processed it the right way. So I remember, to this day, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I was at training, I was on shift, and I got a couple phone calls from my dad, and I think a text message, and something didn't seem right, and my mom had called me a couple times, and so I called him back in the middle of training. I was like, hey, guys, I got to step away. And they called and said, hey, Matt Negley, who was a chief in Orlando, huge guy down here.
Yeah.
They said, hey, he passed away. He killed himself.
Wow.
And it hit, and I just remember thinking, wow, like I grew up. I literally had just seen him in October. I called him, actually a couple months prior, asking about how to get in to volunteer at the conference. And I had a voicemail from him, so like we had been in communication. So they hit me with this. I knew my dad was close with him, and I was like, well, okay, whatever, move on. And for whatever reason, I was like, well, I asked my dad, hey, how are you feeling? Are you okay with it? And I could hear that. I could hear it in his voice that it wasn't okay.
Right.
And that it was the first time it had really resonated with me that something like super tragic had just happened. And I hung up the phone. I turned around and I was walking back to the engine of my guys and literally just fell onto my knees and started crying.
Wow.
And my crew looked at me, and I remember them. You see that look in their face, right? And they come over and like, what happened? What happened? And I couldn't speak. I just felt like everything came crashing down. And at the time, the fire chief in Lake Mary was a former Orlando chief, so luckily I had a pretty tight connection with him. Ended up going down to Station 1 that night, spent time around the guys, went to the funeral, obviously got to talk with people, and then the thing that really hit home is I'll never forget, I was standing by the car when they put the casket in, and he had two little twins, and one of the kids asked, where's Daddy going? And so that hit me, and it was so tough to deal with. Instead of actually talking about it and feeling that, feeling the feelings and all, I just buried it.
Yeah.
Never talked about it again. And then, fast forward a couple years, a couple more things happen and experiences, and then that's kind of when it all came crashing down for me. But that was probably the first time in my life, in my fire service journey, career journey, that I could have taken a step to prevent some issues, and instead I felt like I needed to put on this like suit of armor and not let it show, and that it was like, status quo, whatever, we move on.
That is, excuse me, that is, I think that is so prevalent for so many of us. I think that it is, I'm happy that we're progressing forward in the fire service, but we have a long way to go. But, you know, when you think about years ago, having to bury it and having to, I want to back up a little bit, because what you said, you have all these situations that happen to you during your career. You're one step removed typically, right? Because we're the one rendering aid, we're the ones rendering care, we're the ones going to the fires. So we were called upon to be there. It's not somebody you personally knew. Then there's a few people that you personally know, that had trauma or suicides and things like that, where they lost their lives. And it really is that conversation of what's the worst thing you've seen. Because for people that don't understand trauma or don't witness trauma like that, they don't understand. Like you wore it like a badge of courage. You buried it, you put it on your sleeve, and you're like, yeah, I did that. Yep, I did that. But there's no way to process it, because we have to find the tools and the ways in which we process. And a lot of times it's with your crew. You even said it before. I had a great crew. I was riding with great guys. Like, a lot of times you can find it with your crew, but still guys aren't 100% transparent and honest with how they're dealing with it. And so then it goes to issues at home. It goes to substance. It goes to alcohol. It goes to destructive natures, all these different things. And it just constantly piles on itself. And I'll be honest with you, and I think you made a comment to it, I didn't really understand mental health until I started diving in with National Fire Radio in the last few years to understand how much that truly plagues our emergency services, because I was always the guy who was like, don't worry about it, toughen up, we'll be fine, turn it off and walk away. And I'm sure there's damage that's been done to me that I've never addressed. I'm sure there is.
Yeah. So, I think, there's a lot of guys, the fire service is plagued with, alcohol, with, sometimes poor decisions, divorce, unfortunately, suicides. And I saw this quote the other day, kind of after FDIC, and it really resonated. It was, I wrote it down here, so I want to forget it. We can we can pull as many people out of the river as we want. Eventually, we need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really true. We'll talk about it later, but we just had another suicide locally, and every time it's like, well, we didn't see it coming. We do a physical every year. We do JPRs every year. We test ourselves and see if we're physically fit every year. Why are we not checking to see if we're mentally fit every year? And I think it's one of those things that some people are afraid to admit. I was afraid to admit it, and now, I feel like if I can be an open book, at least in my department, kind of getting picked on and teased about it enough times, it's like, what, if me opening up and telling my story and talking about it and even letting people pick on it and laugh, I really don't care. I could care less what people think about me now, and if it helps one person, then I hope that's the case.
You're helping more people than you know, I promise you that. But I wanted to ask you, how well did you hide it? How well did you hide your struggles, your internal struggles? I mean, you're coming apart on the inside. There's tearing happening. You're coming apart, but on the outside, you have to portray this image of who you think you need to be, or who you think your people need you and want you to be. How well did you hide it?
So I think, I hid it terribly, and you can ask anybody that I work with. For so long, I hid it. I didn't know I was hiding it. I knew things were wrong, but I wasn't sleeping. I was like, I was addicted to like this self-image and going to the gym and looking a certain way and portraying myself a certain way and acting a certain way. And I didn't know, I didn't know why. I was very like snappy with people, a little bit over aggressive, and I didn't know it. So I won't say I was hiding it. I was just exhibiting behaviors that were not normal for me.
Well, I think what I meant by hiding it is exactly that, right? Maybe for lack of better words, it's how did you disguise what you were feeling and who you are? I mean, that's really what it was, right? Because you had to portray an image that you weren't struggling. You weren't suffering on the inside, right? Yeah,
I guess it was one of those things. I didn't know that it was suffering. I thought it was just like, oh, you're being a baby.
Right.
You're better than that. Like, that's not real. And it never, I hate to say it never like affected me. It was affecting me close. I didn't know it. And I wish at that point I had looked at it, or I had listened to people and maybe taken a step to see what was going on. But I don't know. It just never occurred to me that what was happening was kind of the breakdown on my mental health.
Did you have people in your life that pointed some of these things out to you? The reason why I'm asking these questions, these are the questions that I think people will get the most value out of, because there are people that probably don't recognize that they're having struggles, that they're masking or hiding or disguising through their actions. They're putting that other stuff on pause. They don't want to admit that they're dealing with it. And that's why I'm kind of pushing you a little bit on this, because I think this is what guys need to hear.
No, the only person I recall, two people were my mom and dad. But it was never like a, hey, we think this is going on, or we think something's wrong. It's like, my mom will tell this story a million times. Probably 2 or 3 years into working, maybe 2 years, she fell off our front porch and broke her leg.
Yeah.
And she called me a couple times, and I was just like, all right, I'll come over. I got there, her leg was broken, she's in pain, and I was like, why didn't you drive yourself to the hospital? Come on. Right. Like, this isn't that bad. And she's like, seriously? Why are you acting like this? You've never been like that. I'm like, Mom, I do this every day. It's not a big deal. Like, let's go to the hospital. And, she jokes, we got to the hospital, and I went out and was talking to all the firemen at the nurses station and getting snacks and stuff. And it wasn't making a conscious decision to do that. I had just blocked that,
Yes.
sympathy part out of my brain, and it wasn't a thing. It was just, hey, this is normal everyday stuff. You're going to be fine. You're really not feeling that much pain. Suck it up, let's go, type of thing. And
But her
whatever.
pain is, yeah, right. And yeah. And so what was that moment where you realized like you were being destructive or being in a place that needed some attention, that you had to start focusing on yourself? Like, what was it for you? Was there a moment, or you just
So I started working for Winter Park. I thought I was going to go to Orlando. The cards didn't play out, and I'm incredibly happy where I am now.
Yeah.
But I go to Winter Park. My wife and her whole family lives in my city. A lot of them live in my first due. So pretty fresh into Winter Park, right? I'm like probably in this huge hole that I've dug myself into mentally, and I don't know it yet.
Right.
And probably a year in, we get a call, basically respiratory arrest. We show up, and it's her grandfather.
Oh, wow.
And we walk up the stairs, and like, I always love looking at pictures in people's houses and trying to figure out who they are before we see them.
Sure.
For whatever reason, I was not looking around. I mean, there's pictures of the whole family lying down the stairwell. And we get upstairs, we turn, and they see him. I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, I know these people. And the dynamic quickly changed. Right now, it's no longer like, oh, we're running this call. It's, hey, this is family now. So we load him up, took him to the hospital. He ended up passing away, 1 or 2 days later. And it was this position I was put in where I was, a lot of the family got to see him, but there's some family that never did.
Right.
And I was kind of that last connection to him. And I did not want that. So this happened. Everything, like the emotions, the feelings, seeing how the family was dealing with it, my own emotions with it, everything kind of came crashing in. And then it was like everything. It was Matt. It was Corey. It was all these people I knew, and calls I had run, and everything that I had never processed or never thought about. Just boom, 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 hitting me. So I started to really I just full on panic. Like I started to hide. My performance at work went down. I had a lot of people telling me, they don't know if I could do the job. Everything started falling apart. I was calling out sick. It was really, really bad. And even still to this point, I never looked at it as mental health. I just looked at it as like, man, I'm just stressed right now. And we ran a call, a fire scene. Well, probably the shift before, I had kind of snapped on my lieutenant in Publix over what we were having for dinner. Then we run a fire. We get there. We ended up being writ. And my chief now made a comment to me, just joking around, like, hey, like, make sure my water's cold. And oh my God, did that set me off. Like,
wow.
I was because it's like, you've been told you can't do it. I have my own image of what I should be, and I was not that at all. And it was just, so then to have that and be like, hey, like, I know you, in my head, hey, I know you want to fight the fire, but go get me a cup of water. Which normal firehouse banter, it just like,
yeah, right, rolls right off your back. It's banter, right?
Yeah, and it just like, I yelled at him, and it turned into, I got back. My fire chief, the battalion chief at the time, who's now the B Ship Battalion, pulled me into his office and said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but here's this program, and it might be worth looking into. So
wow,
that was kind of the start of the journey. I went to is out of UCF. I went through UCF's program, saw a couple different counselors, and something I realized is if you don't find the right counselor, it's not good. A couple of my counselors cried, and that wasn't going to help me. And
right.
Like I'm a huge big believer that everything's kind of meant to be and happens for a reason. The guy who I ended up settling down with and who is still my counselor today was actually my dad's fireman from when I was growing up. So know him very well. He's an awesome guy. And so kind of went through that whole journey. It was, I look back now and I've never would have thought I would have made it out. It was just, and I'll tell you, when you're seeking for like what's going to kill you or what's wrong with you or why you're not fitting an image that you have in your head, that's a real dangerous place to be. And yeah, it was I learned a lot, I grew a lot, and like I said earlier, there were guys, I'm in this journey, this is kind of why I do what I do now. As I'm in this journey, some people were receptive to it, some people picked on it, made fun on it, and I don't know, I just made it through, and here I am today.
Well, and thank God for that, right? I mean, it's things are meant to be. Things happen the way they happen, and you pursued, and I love the one thing you said too. If you find somebody that isn't for you, find someone else. Like continue the journey to find. And I think what's really interesting, and God, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I know what this conversation is doing for me. So I can only imagine the regular listener that's listening to this, how this is going to hit. I mean, this is pretty strong stuff, and I'm thinking about my own journey, and I'm thinking about times where I was short or snapped or I didn't handle it correctly, and you start to think back, and it's like, is that something showing itself? Like, to be able to recognize that, and I know it took you a little bit to recognize it yourself, that you were carrying a lot, and for people that were close to you, the chief from Orlando that took his life that you were friends with, that was a mentor for you, your destructive behaviors for yourself. I mean, these are all, when you look back now, you go, probably, I can only assume you say, how did I miss this? Like, how did I not put this all together? But it's when you have a front row to your own story, you're missing most of the story, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting here now, and I'm just, it's a really powerful story, and I'm so grateful that we have met and that you've come along in your journey, and now you're helping others. And you said something before that was really poignant to me, and you said, I don't care what other people think, because what this story has done for you, you're now in the next chapter, and the chapters that have led up to this has made you who you are today. You're bringing tremendous value to those around you, and for you to talk about your own story today is only going to help people. And that's what we need to be doing, right? Isn't that what being a fireman is? Being a brother, being a part of culture? You mentioned to me before we started how important culture is. Culture is taking care of one another. Culture is the foundation from which we come.
Yep.
We need guys like you to help us get there. I promise you that, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. God. That's heavy stuff, bro. That's heavy. And I appreciate you sharing it, because it's like, it's just so many people out there are dealing with things that they don't even know they're dealing with yet. Yeah. And I think for you to share that just goes really deep. And I truly appreciate you for that. But I want to focus on some other things. Now, how long ago in your journey was that? Like how, and you said you're still seeing a counselor, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should. And in fact, I just said to my wife not too long ago, 47 years old, I think I'd love to sit with somebody. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tony Soprano did it, right? I mean, come on. It can't be bad to find somebody to talk to, and especially in the fire service where you're dealing with the highs and lows, man. There are such peaks and massive valleys that we go through. Man, I encourage people to talk about it. I really do. I think we need more of that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. If you're willing to go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week and get your body looking a certain way. I told somebody this a couple days ago. I said, if you feel weak or you feel like you don't look how you want, what do? You go to the gym. If your tooth hurts or something's wrong with your mouth, you go to the dentist. If you're feeling sick, you go to the doctor. If you're stressed or you don't feel right in the head, why are we so reluctant to go deal with mental health? And I've seen it. I have friends right now. I have a lot of friends who I'm open with everybody, like I said, but who I talk with, and you start that conversation, and they will say, "Oh yeah, I go to a counselor. I do this," or "Oh, maybe I should do this, but no, I probably won't because it's a lot of money or this or that." And I tell people, "Hey, if it's a money thing, I'll pay for you to go. I'd rather pay a couple $100, let you go for a couple sessions and get you feeling better. Money shouldn't be the issue. I think it's pride and ego that people don't want to look at it.
Yeah, it's the stigma of it, right? It's the stigma. And we will self-destruct over admitting to ourselves that, maybe we need some help there.
Yep.
I think you draw a lot of great examples there, and what I wanted to ask was to circle back a little bit. You said, every year we do our yearly physicals and we make sure we're physically fit for the job. We're physically in shape. We go through our annual testing, our mask fits, all these different things that we do. But man, we don't do a self-check when it comes to our own mental health.
Yep.
How do we do that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a conversation I've had. I mean, the biggest thing is getting over that hurdle of wanting to do it, right? I don't think guys want to do it, guys and girls. I don't think they want to know. If you
we just want to play dumb. We don't want to admit that there's something there.
Right. So we've talked about, is it a mandatory thing? Is it just something that we start implementing and make it the normal? Unfortunately, after a suicide happens, that's right under the microscope, right? We get peer support, we get post-incident debriefings, we get all that, but then a couple months down the road, it all goes away, and it's not a problem anymore. So I really don't know.
It is certainly reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't, even with critical incident stress and PTSD and trauma response, right? It's all reactive. Are we setting the stage before we have trauma in our lives to say, if you encounter this, if you come across this, here are the tools available? I mean, you might have this, your union says this, your department has this in place, but go deeper on that conversation, right?
Yep.
Does this sound familiar to you, X, Y, and Z? Do you see this when you look in the mirror? Do you not look in the mirror? Like, I think those parts of the conversation are super important too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, it's one of those things that, if you go into your yearly physical and they say, hey, we want you to do 20 push-ups, we want you to do 15 sit-ups, pick the number. Guys do it and it becomes a competition. So depending on how questions are posed, I think
yes,
you don't want to answer like, well, yes, I struggle with sleeping at night. Well, yes, I, X, Y, and Z, right? I think it's more of a, hey, these things are normal. If you're experiencing this, if you're, drinking heavily every night, if you're, having to do certain things to feel better, that is perfectly okay. And there's a path to get out of it. Yeah. You just have to be wanting to help yourself. And I think that's where we have to get it. It's not, if you have PTSD, if you're struggling, it's not a bad thing. You're not getting put out on administrative leave. It's nothing like that. It's, hey, if you break your leg, you're out hanging out at home, relaxing, right?
That's right.
Healing. Same kind of thing. And I think that's where we have to get to.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're making strides. We are making strides. And I think more guys that have the courage to come out and talk about their own stories, and that's where I kind of want to go with the second half of the podcast is really your story.
Yeah.
This doesn't define you. That's the other thing I think that needs to be talked about is like, the first 30 minutes of the podcast has been about mental health and struggles and this and that, but that's not who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And right? And I think that has to be said too, that anybody that is dealing with anything like this, it's not who you are. It might be a chapter or two in your life and your story, but you can get that under control and address it because you're bigger than that. You're better than that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
So growing up in a Chiefs home, man, Orlando's a fire town.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was cool. That's all I ever wanted to do. Was be a fireman. It had its pros and cons. I got hundreds in all my anatomy and first aid classes in high school, and I got zeros in history and everything else because I didn't care about it.
Right.
But it was awesome. I started riding on fire trucks at 13 years old. I became an explorer.
Explorer program with the city of Orlando
with the city of Orlando. Yep.
What a great way to bring people in. Oh
my gosh, I know. And I have a couple family friends now that they've put their kids into it, and it's an unbelievable window into what this job is. But I met some incredible people, some people who were close with my dad. Who are really close with me right now. My battalion chief, Scott Ketchum, was an explorer with me. He signed off on my first ride test.
It's cool.
So I met some awesome people. You grow up really quickly, and you meet a lot of really great mentors. And it's just, I mean, there's so many even if you do it, my little brother did it and wants nothing to do with the fire department, but
Right.
he made friends. He learned a lot, and it's so much better for you than 90% of the other things that are out there.
But what 100%, right? I mean, think about the values of what the fire service stands for, to be able to share that with impressionable kids at a young age that are starving for something, and we bring them into the fire service and we teach them
Yep.
the values of what we do day in and day out. And I absolutely love that. The other thing I love too about it, to take it one step further, is the city of Orlando is a career fire department. You don't have the opportunity to volunteer there. So to have an Explorer program like that, you guys could potentially build the next class of firefighters coming through the Orlando Fire Department, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you're vetting kids at a young age and giving them exposure to the department they might work for one day. You can't ask for a better You can't ask for a better firefighter than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you teach, it's things that I've carried with me to Winter Park, and I've been really, really grateful to implement. Culture, that the family feel within the firehouse, station pride, all that. Anybody can go to school, become a firefighter, and do the job. Anybody can spray a hose. But I'm fortunate that I'm with a great crew, great department. Orlando, great people, great department.
Sure.
That it means more than just that. So
we can teach you how to be a fireman. We just can't teach you all the other things that come with it.
exactly,
You have to learn that, right? And you have to be exposed to it.
Yep.
Anybody can teach you how to force a door, stretch a line, throw a ladder, and everything in between, right? And all those little tips, tricks, and hacks. That's academia. We can do that on the fire ground, conferences, academy. But can I teach you how to be there for, somebody when they call you? Can I teach you how important it is to expose your family to the picnics and to the people that you ride with, to go all in on them? That's the stuff that inherently comes with a good culture.
Yep. Yeah. What's funny is we talk a lot. We share a lot at the, while we're training out in the bay. But, at my firehouse, some of our best conversations come either, at the dinner table, but even more, we have a gym upstairs. And if you ask Eric about it, he calls it our Globo gym. He will never be seen in there. But, me and some of my buddies, every shift we go up there, we curl some weights, we look in the mirror and we have a good time. But, we've had conversations up there. Like when I found out I was having, our first baby, talking to my buddy Vance up there.
Awesome.
One of our guys was going through a divorce, and when he found out, the 3 or 4 of us, that's where we talked about it. And it's just little things like that with the culture. It's, hey, you could be in your room, you could be, not nothing against studying, but you could sit and study a book all day. But there's more to be said about going out, training together, working out together, going out for dinner after shift, going to hockey games, we just went to a Volcano Bay the other day with some guys on my crew.
Nice.
And it's things like that I think that's really what the fire service is about. Everybody runs calls. Everybody does the same basic job stuff. It's what do you do extra to really build up that family culture.
It takes work.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta go all in, right? And I think that's the real interesting conversation, because it's, that whole thing of like that work-life balance, and people get crazy about it. Whichever side of the fence you're on, I think you could have it all. I really do. I think you can have a great life outside of the firehouse, but I also think that a lot of your life revolves around the people you run with all day long, and that is the firehouse.
100%.
And you got to put the work in, though.
Yep.
It's important. But who wants to be in a place that doesn't have an unconditional response and respect from the people that you're riding with and that you're being firemen? I mean, we're supposed to enjoy this.
Yep.
Right? We're supposed to be having fun and surround ourselves with people that make us better. So why aren't we going to put the time in?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's unfortunately something that might be dying. I know something that we love on my crew is the banter. You could call it hazing, but I don't think it's hazing. It's joking around like we're
100%
siblings. And if you're afraid to get in trouble for that, or you're afraid to play pickleball in the bay, or if you become afraid of that and you start teaching that out of your firehouse culture, it goes away, and you get somebody who never grew up in the fire service, who just went to standards, is fresh out of school. All they know is by the book, That's how you kind of weed that out. The guys at the top leave. The guys in the middle are unsure if they should teach that old school culture, and then the guys at the bottom never learn it, and that's how it leaves. And unfortunately, I think bigger departments, it may be easier to keep because there's just more people. The more people you have, the easier it is to keep a culture.
I think so.
And the smaller you are, if you really don't focus and work on it with all the guys, it's really, really, really easy to lose it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The smaller the stance, the less people there are to pick up your slack when you're having an off day. Because, we all have ups and downs, and we have days that we're 100%. We have days that we're at 50%. But the days that I'm half, I got, in a big department, there's a lot of guys that can help pick me up.
Yeah.
In a smaller department, not that many guys can help pick you up, especially if they're having a half day too,
Yep.
Yeah. What was it about training for you? You mentioned training. I know you work with Van Enter Search, the VES training cadre. You were with Eric Wheaton at FDIC. You guys were doing, I think you said you did 200 fires in 3 days or something like that. Some crazy.
252.
That's a ridiculous number. I don't even know I don't even know how it's possible. But training for you, how important is that? Where does that come from?
Oh, that's everything.
Why?
I think personally for me, I grew up around it. Like I said, I grew up at the Orlando Fire Conference. My dad is big in the hazmat world, so I grew up seeing him teach. And the people that you're closest with, that's who you're teaching with, who you're traveling with. I listened to Basil from Orlando talk this morning on a podcast, and he said the strongest bonds are formed in the hottest fires. And he'll say that's not his quote, but I'll give him credit because that's where I heard it from.
Right.
But I think that's true. Our training specifically, we like to make it real world. We like to make it hot. We like to make it fast paced. We like all that. And in that, it's hard. The actual class, putting it on as instructors, it's brutal, but it is so much fun. The guys that we're with, there's no egos there. It's all of us are friends, there to do the right thing, there to have a good time, and I think that's what makes it great. I love training because obviously I like to get better at my job. I like to advance my skills. I like to learn. I like to share things. But it just feels like me and my boys hanging out. We don't go to fires every day. We don't do rope calls every day. We don't do that stuff. So when we train, we're practicing it. We're having fun. We're failing together. We're learning together. And I think I've never laughed harder than the days I'm out teaching and having a good time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we don't take ourselves seriously. We pick on each other. We get Eric really good. But me and Jimmy, man, we just the three are we teach with some awesome guys too. It's so cool. And I there's not one person I've taught with or been around that I have anything negative to say about. No one's ever tried to put a student down, another instructor down, nothing. It's just, hey, this is what we love to do. We're having fun. Yep. We're at the playground. Come out and enjoy it. And that's what I love about it.
I think a big part of it too, right, is how much you guys challenge one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because that to me is like what I have found as I've gotten older is I really need to surround myself with people that are going to hold me accountable and then challenge me.
Yep.
And I think what you're talking about with fast paced and always on the run and making it challenging, those are things that are important because I just so many people I think just go through the paces every day.
Yeah.
They just it's comfortable, it's what I know, and this is where we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to do it. And when it comes to training, if you're going to have an instructor cadre and you're going to be out there training the next generation of firefighters or the generation that's here now, if you're not doing it for them and you're just going through the paces and it's like the one thing I hate is training conferences that push people through like cattle.
Yeah.
They're just like, all right, you're up, and then they push them through and the experience is over in 90 seconds. Next. There's zero value in that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we like I said, we don't take ourselves seriously. We push each other. We just did myself, Eric, and then I I always say their last name, so it takes me a minute to remember their first name.
That's all right.
Rescar and Sleater. So Caleb and Jake, the guys down here, One Bad Tour, they put a class on. It was the first one, a 24-hour class. Anybody listening who wants to go do that or has a thought of doing it, go do it. They put this on, and Eric, jokingly but also serious, was like, "You guys don't have a choice. You're putting in for this with me."
Love that.
And so we all put in for it. We all, they're a couple years in now teaching with us. And we had to pick a squad leader for our group. And we were like, "Oh, all right, Eric, it's you." And he turned and he said, No, it's Drew. And I had a lot of self-doubt. Just up to the day of the class, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I think that was okay. It was nothing. I had never done anything like it. And,
sure.
He put me in that position to learn, to grow, and that translates out to our training. It's not a position of power or any. It's just being willing to enable somebody and push them into a position they're not comfortable with. And when we teach at FDIC, we had 210 people in 2 days, and I feel like we made good connections with them. We spent zero time in the morning doing self-introductions because that doesn't matter. We told them our names. That way, if you want to ask somebody a question, you know somebody's name, right? But no one cares. No one should care about, how long I've been somewhere or where I am. It should just be, hey, can we make a connection? Can we talk? Can I share something from you? Can you share something to me? And we both grow together. And I think that's what's important.
It comes out in the training ground, right? When you're doing it right, your pedigree shows. I mean, they learn very quickly if you belong there or not to be teaching.
Exactly, yeah. And that's something we hold a lot of value in. And why I'm so humbled and blessed to be with this group is, I never ever would have thought I'd been in this position to travel and teach. Heck, teach at FDIC. So,
right.
When we get to speak with students and they say they know you from, social media or this or that, it just, oh my gosh, it's so humbling and it's so cool. And I try to connect with these people and go out after the classes with them and talk. And that's what's awesome. That's why I love training. I just love the people. So
how do you not?
Yeah.
Right, when you break that down, it's like when I go to firehouses and I travel and do what I do, it's like I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got to come through when you engage people and talk with people. You got to show them that you're truly into it, and and you can get so much deeper in the conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. So what else about you? Give me something more, man. How many years in Winter Park now?
I'll hit 6 in September.
You riding that TDA? You a truck guy or are you an engine guy?
I'm an everything guy. So we rotate through. I'll give you my all wherever I am. I love truck company operations. I love being on the tiller. I tell everybody, if people say they want to be on the truck because they don't want to run calls, that drives me wild. I want to be on there. I want to be there because when the call for the truck comes out, I want to be the guy in the seat performing. I'm very lucky to be on a crew with 11 people that all want to be on the truck, and it would be selfish to say that I'm the only one that deserves it. So we rotate through. You put me on the rescue ambulance. We call them rescues down here. You put me on the rescue, I'll try to take patients. I'm an EMT, but I'm comfortable in my skills, and I'll be right at the bed talking, just like I'll be throwing a harness on to get on rope. So I like to say I'm a truck guy. That's where my heart is. That's what I like.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm there for my crew, and I'm try to be there for the bigger picture, and that's what's important.
Well, that's huge, right? It's the mission, right? And what you just said is really cool. You're like, there's 11 guys there, and they all want to be there. Mm-hmm. Culture, we talked about culture before and how important that is to you. A culture like that comes from strong roots and a strong foundation. Mm-hmm. And weak people that don't want to be a part of that don't fit in there.
Yep.
Right? That's what I love. It's there's a lot of people that are starving for more in the fire service. And then you go around and you talk to guys like yourself, and you go to different fire departments. You talk with guys all over the country, and they're like, nope, our firehouse has got it on. We're good. We're solid. And you look at that and you go, they don't allow the people that aren't into it or don't want it won't be there. They can't stay there. They can't hack it, right? It's not tolerated.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah, and so I was really fortunate in getting put in position. I don't want to say picked, but assisted into taking over our benevolent association.
Oh, okay, nice.
I really wanted to make station T-shirts and make our Ghost House logo, and the way to do that was by getting into that role. And I learned very quickly with doing a station logo, doing events, you're not going to please everybody. And
not even close.
That's kind of where I got that opinion of I don't care what you think about me. I'm a big believer in my opinion, years of service don't mean a thing. It's how long you've been there. Great.
Yeah.
It's are you willing to get up and train with the new guy? Are you in there, still doing dishes with us? Are you in there joking, playing around? If you need to tell me how many years of service you have or what you know or that, guess what? I don't care. I'm on to the next. We have a guy right now, our probie, who's he's just like a little ball of energy. My wife says he's a golden retriever. He loves it. He loves to be around. And there's some people there who are threatened by that, energy that, oh, you're brand new. You shouldn't be talking. You shouldn't be smiling. You shouldn't be joking with these guys. It's like, hey, we're all friends here. If our battalion chief is in the kitchen joking and having a good time, there's no reason why you shouldn't be, why he can't be. He's never, if you're being disrespectful on a scene, that's one thing. That's the professional.
There's a time and a place, right,
exactly.
for all of it.
So
it's knowing where you fit in with that.
Yeah, we have a great culture, and I don't want to say it's fun to see, but it's fun to see the people who don't like it. They'll find their way out the door.
So why is it the Ghost House?
I wasn't there for this, but back in the day, there was the story is that there was a police officer. So before our station was built, when the old station was sitting there, a police officer coded in the back hallway, and or the back parking lot, I should say. Eric Wheaton's dad was actually involved with this. They drug him inside. They worked the code. Unfortunately, unsuccessful. And apparently, I don't know, but he may have had cigarettes in his front pocket, and one of the guys said, I guess he won't be needing those, and took them and smoked them. So it's said now that he haunts our back hall, and guys swear by it. They swear they see the ghost. So, that's who we are. We're the Ghost House.
Couple things there. One, the fact 6 years in for yourself and you know the story, that's important, right? Because I think it's so important that guys know the stories from which we come from.
Yep.
So I love that. Two, I believe that 100%. I do. My house where I live, haunted.
Yep.
It is. Where I live, me, my family, my kids, our house is haunted. I've never spoken about it publicly until right this very second. And that's why when you gave me a sticker at FDIC, I actually put it on the sticker board over here.
Nice.
And it is the Ghost House. And I was curious. I'm like, man, I wonder what the story is there.
Yep.
There's got to be something. So anyway, I could tell story after story of stuff that goes on here. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. But back on point, the fact that you know some of the stories, the background, that means the guys are doing the storytelling. And you're thirsting for that knowledge. You want the stories. You want to understand the foundation. That stuff is what leads to that positive culture that you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. So, FDIC this year for you. How was it?
Like a tornado.
Why?
It was amazing. So we flew in. We were there Saturday to Saturday.
Right.
The earliest we had dinner any night was 8:30 p.m.
Yeah.
I think the earliest I got to bed any night was midnight. And then, it was so much fun. Unlike anything I've ever done, I went the year prior as a student, but, to go up there and to be, part of that instructor world and just to meet, I remember we're sitting in the opening meeting and they said that Robert Morris was in the back of the room, and I turned, I like started blushing, and I looked at Eric, and he's just laughing at me. Just some of the names you see there, and
Sure.
shaking hands with, these just tycoons of the fire service and names that I've heard. It was just incredible. So, man, I loved it. Every year I go back and it re-sparks me, and you get all amped up for the next year and amped up for training until then, and yeah, it was great.
There's so much to it. Not a lot of people get to experience it, and there is something, I want to say, I don't know, for lack of better words, magical about it, because it all comes together there. And, I was talking to a bunch of guys the other day, and they said, the pioneers, the guys, these are the guys that influenced my career. These are the guys that, I read their articles. They're there. Now I get to work beside them. I get to, and those older guys are starting to pass the baton on and sharing the backstage pass with some of these newer guys, because we need that next generation to keep pushing forward. And it's fun to watch. And at FDIC, that is really the moment where you see a lot of it come together.
Yes.
Because there are no egos for the most part. There are no, there's no craziness. There's no nonsense. It is literally the largest kitchen table you'll ever sit at.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I'm grateful. I was grateful. I get to meet guys like you, and have great conversation and so on. And that to me is the real value of all this.
Yeah.
And we all write our own story, but man, when we can share it and come together and I don't know. It's one of those moments, man. I had a great time this year. It was really good.
Yeah, it was awesome. And, man, so many connections, so many just amazing moments. For me, I think the end was the best. But God, it's great. We're still telling stories at the firehouse of what happened up there, and I feel like I laughed more in that week than I ever have. And
Right.
I'm just so blessed to be part of a crew and a team that went up there, and it really does mean a lot. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and I guess that's a big part of it, right? Is kind of just circle back around and start to wrap this up just a little bit, but. Again, you write your own story.
Mm-hmm.
And the chapters we talked about earlier on today, those were chapters. And now it's, you're living and doing what you want to be doing and enjoying every step of it and surrounding yourself with people that push you to be better and ending up at FDIC and all those things. I just love that. I absolutely love that, because it tells me that anybody can have anything they want. They just got to work for it.
Yep.
It's cool. Very cool. So with all of that, now that you're wearing my 1 of 1, what are you going to do with it?
Well, so kind of give a little backstory, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So I told you a little bit, but we flew into FDIC. We were teaching. Like I said, I met the Next Rung guys the year prior, and anybody who doesn't know about Next Rung or what they're doing really needs to look into it. We got a call Tuesday afternoon. Again, one of those afternoons I had a couple missed phone calls from my dad, a couple weird text messages, and I called him at lunch, and we found out Tuesday while we were teaching that a guy, Jeff Huggins, who myself, a lot of guys I know much closer with him, but he unfortunately committed suicide. Again, one of those things no one ever knows, right? It just happened, and so anyway, so that happened Tuesday. A couple of guys I teach with were really close to them as well, so we talked about it. We talked with the Orlando guys up there. Fast forward to Friday, we turn the corner. Next Rung is doing a fundraiser, and I had been looking all week at helmets and wanting to spend money on something, and we get to the auction, and Jimmy and I and Eric decided, hey, I love this. This is really important to me. Let's do a donation. So they were laughing. They said, hey, go for it. We'll see. So you held up an axe. I think I put a couple $100 on it. Whatever. I lost. I didn't need it anyway. It's okay. And I I could tell the jersey, meant something to you, and I was like, hey, let's see if he'll go for it. And they laughed. I said, if he offers the jersey up, I will not lose it. And so here we are. So you offered it up. We won it. I met with the Next Run guys that night at dinner, had a long conversation with them. And I mean, man, if you never know, but if Jeff or anybody out there who's struggling had known about what they're doing and what they could have had and the help they could have had, maybe we'd be in a different place. So,
yeah,
for me, I mean, God, I love this jersey, but obviously we had a lot of conversations. I hope that through the story of the jersey, through people that I talk to, it brings awareness to what Next Rung is doing, and it brings awareness to what we can do ourselves, whether it's with culture, with mental health, with being a family, with spending time with your own family, whatever it is. I hope it means more than that, than just some money. So I want to maybe eventually try to get this logo and make my own. But I would love to get this thing sent back and have it hanging in National Fire Radio. And when you or whoever visits sees it, they see this story and keep it going.
So what I would love to do, and here's a thought, and I was thinking about this after you and I spoke about this, and I was thinking, like, how can we do something with this? Mm-hmm. So, two things. One, what I'd love to do is for you to bring that jersey back to FDIC next year.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'm going to order you another one.
Oh, wow.
And you'll have your own. And then we'll take that exact one and we'll do it again next year.
Let's do it.
And I think that's the way to do this. So you get to hang on. It's like the Stanley Cup. You get to hang on to it for the year. You got it. You bring it back. You bring it back next FDIC. We'll do an auction again. We'll auction it off for charity, whether it's Next Rung or whoever. But whoever it is, whatever the auction is that year, whatever we're doing, and then I will get you another one for yourself.
That sounds awesome.
If we can keep it in circulation, that's as good as it is for me. And I'll be honest, that was my one of one. That was, episode 1, season 1.
Yeah.
That was going to hang in the rafters 25 years from now in the, in the sky at National Fire Radio headquarters. But the only way it gets any better than that is if it's constantly creating and bringing attention and awareness and raising money, then I'm all in.
That's awesome. I'll tell you what, I'm in on that, and whoever comes to the auction better come swinging next year because I'll be ready.
I love that. See, that's the thing. I might bid on it myself. Are you kidding me? Like, yeah. I mean, that's it, man. That's it. But I can honestly say this, Drew. Life is funny, and things come about in ways that you never imagine. And we all have our ups and downs, mm-hmm. and it's relationships like this where our paths cross because of something that resonated with you. That's something that I was willing to do. Like, whatever the circumstances are, I think what my message is really, what I'm trying to get at is just enjoy the process. Like firefighting, like you don't know where you're going 5 minutes from now, and you don't know what tomorrow's going to look like or your next tour or shift at the firehouse, right? You don't know, but it's part of the process, and being present and a part of it, you're aware of what's happening around you, and you become a part of that process, and that matters.
Yes.
It's the same with this, bro. You and I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having this conversation, sharing some pretty deep stuff and having some laughs if life didn't bring us together.
Yep.
The only way we get brought together is if you're present in the process. And I think ultimately the process absolutely matters, and it's not just on the fire ground, but it's in the firehouse, it's in your personal life and everything else. You got to be all in. You got to be present. You got to be present.
Yes,
well,
sir,
I will say this, brother. Thank you. Thanks for sharing a little bit of your story, man. It was heavy, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. And I'm excited to see where you are in another 6 years from now. With your upbringing and the mentorship that you have and the crowds that you're running with, bro, you got everything in front of you, man. It's exciting.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm so grateful to be on here. Grateful to know the people I know and be with the people I'm with. So I'm just along for the ride, and
Yeah, well, guess what? You're along for the ride now, but like Eric did for you at that 24-hour training night or 24-hour training day, he put you in charge. Someday you're going to be the guy driving the bus, and you got to bring people with you.
Yes,
And that is really how we do the right thing and push it forward. And so, brother, people are going to be gravitating to you, and you're going to bring them along with you when it's your turn to do that. That's exciting.
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cool. Drew, thanks, man. Thank you for joining me today. I truly appreciate your newfound friendship and your passion for all of this. And thank you. Thanks for sharing a little bit of your story today with me, man. I appreciate you more than you know.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Cool. Stay right there. Take very, very good care of that jersey. And I would love to see that I'd love to see that at a game, right? Like in the crowd, like pan across, and you guys are sitting there like watching a game at a home game.
Oh, we'll
so that'd
do
be
it.
cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But anyway, Drew Schaumann, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining me today, man. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today with me. And, man, this isn't going to be the last time you and I get together because I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to sign off the podcast. I'll come right back to you, okay?
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks, guys, for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Today's episode, I need you to do what I always ask you to do at the end of every episode. Take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse, and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. This one hit hard. Take it, think about it, share it. Anyway, we'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.